divorced from the labor movement, ever. It was never divorced in the minds of the activists, of black, white activists that are fighting for equal rights, that were fighting among sharecroppers. A. Philip Randolph was the president and organizer of the sleeping car porters, the first major stronger of the black unions that were formed. We had sleeping car porters, members of this union, in Chattanooga, staying at the Chattanooga Choo Choo. Bayard Russin, who was another organizer, they together organized the March on Washington. Some of the main organizers on the March on Washington, they were featured in Time for it. These were hard-hitting labor leaders. There was also the garment strike workers all throughout the South. Plenty of people of color. If you remember, Martin Luther King was standing up for workers all over the South. When he was in Memphis, he was standing up for municipal workers when he got shot. So this fight cannot be divorced. I would also say that although there has definitely been steps that have been made, in fact, what I talked about the disparity of the weight of these burdens on communities, they are still today most definitely not equal. You've got communities of color in Chattanooga that upwards of 50%. You've got in some communities in East Chattanooga, you've got 23% unemployment rate. People in the inner city, predominantly communities of color, have no access to transportation to many of the jobs that are coming out. Their communities are being left behind in the great bright new star of the Renaissance. There was a report that just came out at the beginning of this year, earlier on, about Volkswagen contracts when Volkswagen was first being built. And they said that less than 0.1% of those contracts went to female or minority-owned businesses. So the struggle is definitely not over. And we need to find ways to address all these issues collectively and together.
My name is Mark. I'm a member of United Campus Workers here and also with the Progressive Student Alliance at UTC. And sort of touching on that, I wonder if any of y'all have anything to say about the fact that the early proponents of right to work for less laws were actually, that large push came from the segregationists. And it was a clear realization that, labor rights were human rights and that the union was one of the strongest places for racial struggle. So I wonder if any of y'all just might have comments about that.
The right to work for less, we all need to know that. I appreciate you bringing that to the forefront. And back to, also to touch on what you were just talking about, the Great Wall of Chattanooga. Nobody ever talks about the Great Divide in Chattanooga. The Great Divide in Chattanooga, what would it be? It'd be Interstate 24. Stand on top of Missionary Ridge and look at Interstate 24 and see what it did when it came through Chattanooga. How it divided, how it segregated Chattanooga. And it stayed that way. It was established, came through, they pushed the African Americans to one side and everybody else to the other side. So going back to what you were talking about before, those rights or those issues will never be, as you said, divorced. We've taken history and especially labor history out of schools. We don't teach civics. Our legislature, those of you who vote in this area, our legislators voted to not allow labor history to be taught in Tennessee high schools. So what are we trying to do? We're dumbing everybody down as they come through. Again, the only thing about history we have to remember is what we don't remember, we're doomed to repeat. And they're setting us up to repeat all this stuff again. So we get into a cycle, we're stuck. We can't get past that point. We're seeing young people now, like I say, that does my heart good to see the young people stepping back up My generation of union members have been blessed, we've been fortunate, and for some part, we've been lazy. We've enjoyed what we've had. I'm one of those. Like I say, I've had to pay dues to be a union member. But it's time, we've got to step back up there. We've got to support who's coming in, who's coming along, and what's happening. We've got to be there. We've got to be there day in and day out. The right to work for less is simply that. It pits workers against workers. We're in a union plant. Sean doesn't have to pay dues, but I do, but he gets represented just like I do. If they mistreat him, he goes and the union has to support him. So why would you join a union if you have that situation? So the right to work for less it's a union killer. It was designed for that. As you said, the racial struggles that were going on, 40s, 50s, 60s. All we got to do is look back at that and see where we are now in 2013. If we'll just go back and look at the history books and move to here, then we can move forward. But if we don't, we stay stuck in the loop. We've got to get out of that loop.